Andrea Smith from Christian Ministries. We're here today to talk about the Middletown Research Studies. We're in the Caldwell Banker Lunsford office due to the commotion and the normal hubbub at Christian Ministries. I am Dr. Nicole Lunsford, and we are here to find out about you, how you got to your position, the changes over time that Christian Ministries has seen. So first, Andrea, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Tell me about your background, your life story that brought you to the position and passion that you now have.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Yorktown, so I've pretty much lived in this area my whole life. I did move away for a short period of time from, I think, 2002 to 2005. Lived in Florida. But came back here ultimately because my whole entire family's here. But I graduated from Ball State University with a degree in public relations. And my very first job out of college was in the public relations department at Community Hospital in Anderson. So I kind of started in the healthcare sector. And then after that was when we moved to Florida. I worked for an educational nonprofit down there. And we worked with schools doing different programs. And then when I came back to Indiana, I worked for another educational nonprofit based out of Indianapolis. It was called Indianapolis Algebra Project. And back when Indiana had the No Child Left Behind Act, we partnered with failing schools to tutor them. So I was in charge of going to the schools, meeting with parents, getting tutors to tutor the kids at the individual schools. When No Child Left Behind went away, my job went away.
Interesting.
So that's how I came to Christian Ministries. I had to look for a new job. So I've actually only been at Christian Ministries, this was almost 5 years in August. It'll be 5 years. But when I initially hired into Christian Ministries, I hired in as a part-time kind of PR development, that type of thing. And I wanted to be part-time at that time because my children were still smaller. And the executive director at that time left within 9 months of me being there. So I stepped in as an interim, and then within 6 months, I became the permanent executive director. So I've been in the executive director role since January of 2017, permanently. So just a little over 2 years permanently. So
yeah, lots of things to see there.
That's how I came.
Christian Ministries is an interesting organization with a rich history. Before we get into the other questions, can you tell me a little bit about Christian Ministries' history?
Christian Ministries started back in 1945, and how it started was a group of pastors from local churches started meeting together. They would just meet at the different churches and come together, and they decided to start pooling their resources, financial resources, as well as working with other community-based agencies to start helping the community, Delaware County and Muncie. So it went that way until working with those churches until 1981. We actually became the social service agency. Still partnered with the churches. The churches funded most of our operations. But it wasn't until 1991 that we became a 501c3. So we've been incorporated in a 501c3 since 1991. We still rely heavily on churches. We still partner heavily with churches. But becoming that 501c3 obviously enabled us to get, go for grant money. And that was obviously huge. It still is. I mean, that's the lifeblood of us right now, the churches, and being able to apply for grants. So we've been around for more than 70 years, but we've been in our location where we're at now since 1991.
And that's right on Main Street.
Yeah, 401.
Where the food pantry is, and above there you have.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your structure.
So we're located downtown Muncie, 401 East Main Street. We are what's considered to be a prime location because we're kind of right there in the center.
And the bus line and everything.
Yeah, the bus line is directly behind us. We have a fire station, or the bus line's in front of us. Fire station's behind us. It's a good location for us. All of our services that we offered are located right there on that corner because we're on the corner of Elm and Main Street. And we have, our food pantry is considered the largest in Delaware County, and that's simply because we are open every Tuesday through Friday. And we provide food services every single week. Many times church food pantries might be open like once a month or every other week, that type of thing. So we have the food pantry. Clients can come once every 30 days to our food pantry. We also work with High Street United Methodist Church and Grace Lutheran Church to provide vouchers for their food pantry. And that's simply to help them screen the applicants. And it's not a big screening process. It's mainly just to keep track of, they require people to come every 3 months to their food pantry. So we have a system where we log everybody in and we can keep track. We do not ask anybody to show ID or anything to come to our food pantry. Just as long as they haven't been there in the past 30 days, we allow them to come and get food. High Street and Grace Lutheran, they do like to see the IDs and just make sure that they're Delaware County residents. For our food pantry specifically, we do not require them to be Delaware County residents because we don't check. Most of them we know are, but we don't check that information. We also have homeless shelters. We have a men's emergency sleeping room that's open October through April. And we could be open year-round, but it's strictly because of funding that we are only open October through April. Now, we did kind of do a little trial run last year during the months. Typically, we would close the first Sunday in April. So we stayed open all of April, all of May, through mid-June, just to kind of see what our numbers would be. And we had a donor that was able to help us out with that. And our numbers were very low. So it, obviously the winter months, we can keep up to 17 men per night, and we're anywhere in between that. We're like 10 to 17 men, especially when it's really, really cold. What some people I don't think understand is we're considered a low barrier shelter for the men's shelter and the family shelter, but that means that we don't really have any rules per se as to, you don't have to enter into a program to come to our facility. You just have to be free of drugs and alcohol. And if you come in and you are under the influence on that night, we simply say, you need to leave, come back when you're not. We don't, not accept them in. But we don't, a lot of these men, they like to have someplace to sleep at night, and then they like to leave during the day. There's been several times where it's been below zero. The city asks us to stay open during those times. We usually accommodate that unless we have staffing issues, but the men don't stay. I mean, it can be below zero and they still want to leave. We'll have one or two stay, but a lot of times not very many stay. So that's the kind of the population that we're dealing with. So I felt like, during the summer months, they were just out doing, what it is they do. And it's hard to get those people housed too. So we work really closely with Bridges Community Services to try to get some of those men housed permanently as well. So we also have a family shelter. Family shelter consists of 4 rooms that share a bathroom and a kitchen, and we have an efficiency apartment that we can house a larger family. Our families are mom, dad, and kids. It can be a dad and kids or a mom and kids. We used to house couples only, not necessarily have to have kids. We changed that about 3 years ago just because we noticed that we had more issues with drugs. And just overall, the police would be looking for people, stuff like that. So if you have we want them to be families, we want them to have children. So that's been kind of a change, because used to everybody thought anyone could come, but as long as you have your kids, then you're able to come and stay with us. Our family shelter is a 45-day stay. So we try to get them the right resources. They work with we have a caseworker. They work with our caseworker. She's our outreach coordinator. She has a social work degree. So she finds out exactly what they need, gets them into, if we can't offer at Christian Ministries, then gets them in touch with other agencies, and we work closely. The goal is to get them out in 45 days. If they're working towards sustainability, they're working, they have a job, they're working, they're trying to save money, or they're on a list for housing, then we keep working with them. We don't just ship them out in that 45-day period. We also offer a lot of other kind of what we call smaller services. We have a baby care program that moms, grandparents, whoever has the children, custody of the children, can come in and get diapers, wipes, formula if we have it. We get formula donated a lot. Baby food. They can come every 30 days and get those items from us. And then we work closely with First Choice. And First Choice, if we don't have the items, then First Choice will most likely have those items, since that's what they specialize in. We have a blanket cupboard to give blankets, sheets, pillows. A lot of times in the wintertime, we have a lot more clients come in for the blanket cupboard, or we have victims of fire that come in and need stuff from blanket cupboard. Or a lot of times our family shelter clients, when they're moving into permanent housing, they obviously don't have any of that stuff. So they utilize our blanket cupboard. That's all on donation. We have churches donate a lot. And sometimes people will send a check and say, go buy blankets. So we go buy blankets for the blanket cupboard. We also offer emergency assistance for utility and rent. We are one of there's one other agency that helps with deposits. That's a big thing. We help with deposits on utilities or deposits on rent. A lot of times when people get disconnected, they have to pay that deposit in order to, get their electricity back on, and most agencies do not help with deposits.
Is that a gift, or is that
They're allowed to apply one time a year with us, and we're not income contingent. Like the trustee's office, you have to fall into some sort of income contingent. They also are able to pay a lot more, so I can kind of understand that. We're not income contingent, but we do have them fill out an application, and we want to know, if you have a $500 a month income, what are you spending your money on? What's the reason you can't pay your electric bill this month? And our outreach coordinator talks with them and gets the information, and then she kind of lets them know, we have a lot of people who have a $100 cable bill, and it's kind of just like, if you don't have electricity, you're not watching your cable. Just stuff like that to,
trying to teach them first?
Yes, and like a budget, like a simple budget plan, maybe. Yes, we try to educate them and help them, so they can come to us once a year. It's a one-time a year thing, and typically, if someone comes in with a $250 bill, we don't always have the funds to pay the whole $250. So we work closely with churches on those funds as well, because the churches like to, when people come into the churches and say, hey, we need help with an electric bill, we donate to Christian Ministries, and then because they know we have an application process and we can better vet the people. So we get a lot of funding from churches for emergency assistance purposes.
Very good. So you've talked a little bit about some of the changes, but help me with the true chronology of how things have changed over, say, the last 20 years.
I would say the biggest thing is just when I talked about us becoming incorporated and becoming a 501c3, that opened us up to more funds and being able to apply for more funds because, we are one of these smaller nonprofits. We operate on I think that's one of the questions. We operate on a $200,000 budget, usually anywhere between $190,000 and $200,000 budget. So we are a small nonprofit, and that grant money allows us to serve more people. So our numbers are in the last 20 years, our numbers have, and some quadrupled in some cases, just because we're able to serve more people, being able to apply for those funds versus receiving all of our income from churches.
I see. My mind went to two different places. One was what changes have you seen in your clientele and your relationship with your clientele that you're serving?
Okay. I can only speak maybe for the last 5 years that I've been there and what I've seen. Honestly, our clientele are either very young, as in the women, early 20s, with, children, or, we have had several people stay in the family shelter that are early 30s, but they have 5 and 6 children. So it's multiple children. And then we have the elder, we have the very young, what I consider very young, and then we have a bunch of elderly people too, needing help. But it's a different dynamic, I think, because the young are dealing with all the children, most likely dealing with, either never being married or divorce. Some people deal with major health problems. They've stayed with parents, and then the parents kick them out, and they've exhausted all of their resources, and they have no place to go. So they come to us. And then the elderly are on a fixed income, and they have medications that they have to buy, and they don't have money for food, and they don't have money to pay their electric bill. And it's because they're on that fixed, $750 a month or whatever they're getting from Social Security. So it's kind of two different. And dealing with the different aging, the different ages is.
Define elderly.
I would say 65 and older. Okay. Yeah, those that get the Social Security and they are on that fixed income. 65 and older. And we have had, in my time, in the past 5 years, we have had I guess 2 that I can think of, grandparents that are raising their grandchildren that have had to stay in our family shelter.
So are you seeing more of that too?
Like I said, in the past 5 years, it's happened twice. But we also have now, more so, we've had 40-some, age 45-ish parents that have 20-year-old children that they're raising their children too, and they all want a place to stay.
Interesting.
And we don't have the space. I mean, we don't have the space for all of that.
What do you think is causing this?
Honestly, the drug problem in this community is very bad. A lot of our clients that come into the shelter, the younger ones, have been, and most of them are honest with us, have been addicted to drugs. We've had a few come in that they're like, I need help now. And we try to get them to the right place. We have several that come in and they want to get their kids back. They just want to get their kids back. So we try to work with them and get them to the right, we don't offer any drug counseling or drug services at Christian Ministries, but we try to get them to the right spot and where they can go. But what we can do is, we have people come in that are being visited, by DCS the next day, and their lights are going to be turned off. And if I don't have electricity, then I'm going to lose my kids. So we can do stuff like that, and it's like pulling resources and, you know, on the phone, and I love when we're able to do that, you know, because those are the ones, I mean, they're in our office, they're crying, they don't want to lose their kids again, or they don't want to lose their kids at all. I mean, it's an issue where they've been being watched and had an open case. So when we can do that, you know, when we can, and, you know, some days you think everybody that's come in, you haven't been able to help. You know, their bills are too high, or them going around to other resource, you know, other agencies, other resources is not feasible for them. They don't have a car. They need bus money. Like, we don't give bus money, but we have some partners with churches who can help get bus tickets and stuff like that. So we try to lead them in the right direction. But we've often talked, and I'm going off on a tangent, but we've often talked about how it would be nice to have like one, you know, one nonstop shop where they can get all the, you know, information they need, so they don't have to travel around to all these different places, because I think that tends to be a hindrance. And then they do the event at the fairgrounds every single year where they have, you know, all the agencies come together and offer the services and stuff like that, so everybody is there. But I think I've talked with other executive directors at the other nonprofits in the area, and it's just, you know, transportation is a huge issue. And I think that's a hindrance for a lot of people too. So we try to do what we can, and then we try to offer, you know, we can't drive everybody around, obviously, but we just try to get them into the right resources. If we can't help them, then we try to get them to the right resources.
Interesting. So what are the key goals of your organization?
Well, our biggest goal, obviously, is to help them with their immediate need, and most likely that is food, shelter, and clothing, which is the 3 basic needs for everybody.
Maslow's hierarchy.
Yep. So those are our first things that we do with most people, especially our family shelter clients and our men's shelter. So we offer them those 3 things. We offer them shelter, we offer them food, and we offer them clothing. Once we get past that, it's what is your biggest need? You know, shelter, obviously, permanent shelter, a job so I can pay for my shelter, so they can become, you know, sustainable and self-sufficient. We hear the revolving door a lot. Like, you know, it's a constant revolving door. Honestly, a lot of funders ask us a lot of times, like, are you seeing the same people? Are you seeing the same people come through your doors?
Right.
And unfortunately, yeah, we do see a lot of the same people coming through our doors in different situations. And now we're trying to track better, especially with our family shelter clients, we're trying to track better once they leave and they move into that permanent housing that we have helped them get, we have worked with other agencies to help them get, how long are they staying there? You know, are they staying there 6 months? Are they staying there for a year? We work with United Way. We get funding from United Way, and that's one of the things they want to see too. They want to see how long, you know, are these clients staying in their housing. It's hard to track.
It is.
And it's just because a lot of times they don't have the same phone numbers. And then if they do leave, obviously they don't have that address that they left us with. We do have, I can tell you, in the past 3 years, we have 3 really solid cases of people that, I have one family that have been in the same housing for 3 years that had stayed with us for 8 months. We worked very, very closely with them. And she still calls, and she still thanks us, and she, you know, because she would not be where she is today if she didn't, but she did everything we asked her to do, and she wanted out, like she wanted out of the cycle, and her husband did too. Her husband actually got out of jail while she was staying in our shelter. He did everything he needed to do. It was the first, I actually had to find out if we could even keep somebody on probation in our shelter because I didn't know how that worked. So that was a learning situation for me. and our board too, because they had never, we had never done that before. We had never, and how was that going to work, and work with the probation officers and do all that stuff? And we did it. We did it. And they are one of, in the last 5 years since I've been there, they are my and the agency's best success story. Doing. So now I know how to work, and now I know how to work with the probation officers. I know how to do all that stuff.
Right.
So if it were to ever happen again, yeah, I know how to do that. So
we kind of talked a little bit about, I'm still buzzing in my mind, over the last 20 years, have those goals changed? Have the challenges changed? Start giving those three, was it?
It's always been that. I don't think the basis of Christian Ministries has ever really changed. It is those three things. It's the food, the shelter, and the providing clothing for family members. We've always, as far back as I've looked in the archives, we've always provided. We've always provided food. We may not have had our standing food pantry, but those church members provided food. We've provided money for utilities. We've always provided those basic services. Now, we didn't have our homeless shelters yet, obviously, back in 1945.
Because you didn't need them, or because you just hadn't gotten there yet?
We hadn't gotten there yet. We didn't have a location. We didn't have that available. So back in 1945, when the church members met, it was basically, pooling the resources of money and doing small little food pantries out of the churches and stuff. But we hadn't gotten there yet. So, but our men's shelter has been running for 23 years. Every April, or opens in October, closes in April for 23 years. So, and we've had several success stories out of them. I know I said that, a lot of the men don't want a permanent situation. They don't want to live in a home. They don't, but we have had men who have moved into permanent housing and have gotten out of the cycle as well. It's not just our families, but some of the single men have too, so.
Right. So we talked about one of the causes maybe being the drug.
Yes.
Or not maybe, it is.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. Have you seen anything else? Like, I've heard a lot of talk about the Alice population. Have you seen other things that you've seen are you seeing an increase in need?
I think probably, when I talked about the young versus the old, the medical issues, high insurance premiums, high, families deciding, hey, we got to have our medicines versus having our food, or versus, pay for our utilities. We see that a lot too. And unfortunately, on that end, it's, what do we do? Mm-hmm. We have one church that gives us money to help pay for prescriptions, but it's not normally something that we do. It's just they wanted to be able to help with that because they had so many people coming to them and asking for it. We do have a fund that our board set up way before me. It's called the Lewick Fund, and it's for women 65 and older because they saw a need for that. There still is a need for it. But it's to help. People donated to that. We also have decided that any interest in stuff that we make from our endowment fund, we have an endowment fund at the community foundation that people donate to. We use that money to go into this Lewick Fund. And we budget so much a year to be able to help women 65 and older. And for those things, prescriptions, we can help pay more on an electric bill. Maybe they have a $200 electric bill, and if they're 65 and older, we can pay that entire amount for them out of that fund. So that is an extra fund that we have available to women over 65 for that reason.
Okay, so you mentioned the board. Does it consist of the pastors, or how does that work?
We do have 2 pastors on our board currently, but it's, we have people from Ball State, Meridian Services, We have some retired people on our board. We have, let's see, 2 pastors, financial analyst. I mean, so it's just people that are interested in, human services, social services. A lot of them get involved because they hear about us at their church.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the churches that we're, really close with and work closely with, they will pass along the information, hey, Christian Ministries, and they know that their church gives to Christian Ministries, so they get involved that way too. And we affiliate our board members with their church, so their affiliation comes from their church, not necessarily from Ball State University or wherever they come from.
So there still is that connection.
Yes.
Of many churches combining.
Yes.
To provide these services. Interesting. Right. So what challenges have you had in finding staff or expertise for your organization?
Okay. We're a super small staff. I am the only full-time person. And then we have a food pantry coordinator who has been with us for 12 years. Mm-hmm. And we have our receptionist, obviously. She's been with us for about she was there before I got there, so 7 years. And then our outreach coordinator, I hired her, but she had been a longtime volunteer of our agency. And then, of course, we have our men's shelter staff, which is there from October to April. We have a coordinator that had been with us for 22 years, and she is in a reduced capacity now. She's mainly working with our volunteers for the agency, specifically for the men's shelter. So we have a new coordinator, but he's been with us for 8 years. Okay. So our biggest turnover comes from the men's shelter staff because it's overnight, and we need people to be there overnight with the men. And so typically I see, since my time, we at least have 1 or 2 new people each season that comes in to work for us. But honestly, staffing isn't really a huge issue, just because it seems like everybody that comes to Christian Ministries stays at Christian Ministries for a while. Right. And that's the case even before me. I mean, people had been for years. But we operate heavily. We use a lot of volunteers, especially for the food pantry. We get a lot of those volunteers from churches. The men's shelter gets a lot of the volunteers from churches as well to do meals and even donate stuff, blankets, toiletries, that type of stuff. Our volunteer base is aging. And one of my goals, per se, I would say, has been to get some younger volunteers in. So I've been working with Ball State, also churches, to get the younger crowd interested in serving, because unfortunately the older ones, they can't do as much, or they can't do anything. I mean, we've had volunteers that have served for more than 20 years, and then they get to that point where they can't do anything, and then we have to fill that position what they were doing. So that has been a struggle. And we don't have a volunteer coordinator, so I just kind of try to do it when I'm not doing everything. Doing everything else. So that is a big challenge for us. And we talk about it a lot at board meetings and with the board. And the board, a lot of the board members volunteer a lot of their time, or their wives volunteer, or their husband that has skills in carpentry or whatever. They are helpful as well too. So, but yeah, I would say that's probably our biggest challenge right now, is beefing up our volunteers again. Yeah.
So what is your budget, and what are the sources of your funding? Okay,
so I mentioned before, we're typically anywhere between $190,000 and $200,000 budget. We obviously churches. We have churches that donate either monthly, quarterly, bi-monthly, or just one. We have some that will just make an end-of-year donation every year. and we have a good solid donor base of individual donors, but our biggest donors are churches, and then grants. So even when I was brought on 5 years ago, I was brought on to write grants. My background was kind of in grants too. I did a lot of grant writing for my previous job that I had. So that was one of the things they wanted me to do, was try to generate more grants. And that's what I did, and that's what I still do. And I feel like that is my strong suit, writing the grants. So I've brought in a lot more grant money that's been able to sustain us for different services, especially our family shelters. Another thing we did was we had never had an audit. So because of the expense.
Sure.
I mean, we'd have reviews and stuff like that because we have to have that stuff, but we had never had a full-blown audit before. And if we don't have an audit, then we can't apply for United Way dollars.
Interesting.
Or
True.
other, federal. Right now, the only federal money we get is through the city when they do the community development goes through HUD and they get money. So we apply through the city, but we still have to follow HUD guidelines. But you can't have that if you don't have that audit to show. So we were able, 3 years ago, we were able to get everybody on board with spending the money to do the audit. So that has opened up more funding sources too. So you gotta spend money to make money, type of thing. So,
so that's a good change. All right. So now, how is your organization impacted by local, state, and federal regulations, if at all?
we're not really, and it's just because we're considered a private organization. I mean, obviously, we have to follow like if HUD sets forth certain guidelines for, to receive the grant money, but it's mainly stuff like, we have to register to receive governmental money, or we have to be open to an audit, or we have to, they can come and inspect, our shelters. We're getting money for the shelters, that type of thing. Locally, we have to, be up to code with fire, fire safety and all that stuff, and we just went through all that stuff. But we don't have a lot of, like, regulations, per se, that we have to follow.
Okay. So, like the food that comes in to the sleeping room, which is your men's shelter,
Right.
Anybody can just make a casserole and bring it in. You do not have to follow Board of Health rules.
We do have to follow Board of Health rules, and meaning, like, we have to. So yeah, anyone can bring us a casserole, but we have to mark it, with like a date. Like, it was brought in on this date, and you can keep it for 3 days, I think is the ruling. And so if Board of Health were to come in and check, then we would have to have this. We would have to have those stickers on there. Now we are. Second Harvest, we are not a provider, but we receive food from Second Harvest. So Second Harvest comes and inspects us in order for us to receive food from them, but that's their own, that's their own agency thing. But they come and it's like, check our refrigerators. Are they at the right temperature? Are our freezers at the right temperature? Do we have all of their food that's been donated or that we've purchased? Is it nothing's expired? That type of thing. But it's, contingent to their, it's their agency's rules. So for us to receive food from them. And we receive, we purchase items from them at a low reduced cost, but we also receive government commodities from them because they're the ones that send that out to the agencies, the partner agencies.
Yes. I've talked to Tim, and he said that a lot of times what your cost is just the transportation.
Yes, pretty much. Pretty much.
Because that does cost too.
Yeah.
So, Andrea, do you have any connections? You've got to. This is kind of a question. You are connected with so many faith communities. Are there any that are specifically connected to you?
I wouldn't say
Your biggest connections with faith communities.
I wouldn't say that I would like pinpoint just one, because we have so many churches that help either financially or they volunteer. So I can't really pinpoint just one, because one of the biggest things about Christian Ministries too is that, we want to be that ecumenical, we want to offer anyone, any church, we get donations from the Bethel Temple, and we go and speak at the Unitarian Church. They come and serve in our sleeping room. So we serve, all of the churches help serve us, and we help serve all of the churches. I can't really pinpoint just one. Like, we're not, the United Methodists don't give us the most money, or,
But you bring up an important aspect, that it's not just Christian ministries. It's faith community ministries that pull together to help those in need. That's a good note to bring out. So how does the community help you reach your mission? What are the ways you can tell me that I can pull people in, that we can pull people in to help you?
Well, the biggest thing is dollars. It's always dollars.
Always dollars.
It's always dollars. But, there's other, I always tell people, because I go and speak at a lot of church groups or at churches, and I always tell people, dollars keep us open, keep us, thriving, and able to serve the community. But, we need donations of, food. We need donations of blankets, sheets, toiletries.
I've been there. Do you need toilet paper?
We need toilet paper all the time.
We need shampoos in small
Yes.
bits.
We need shampoos. We need laundry detergent, because we offer laundry detergent for our family shelter and for our, well, we usually, we get the bigger ones, and that sustains people usually, sometimes for the 45 days that they're there, depending on how many is in their family or whatever. But, so yeah, trash bags. People bring us office supplies all the time to help keep our, our budget down, and so that we don't have to spend that money. And, people serving their time. We have church groups come in all the time. We just had a church group come in on a Saturday and painted in the family shelter for us. We have a group coming in at the end of May that's going to work on tile in some of our bathrooms. And it's, it's just stuff like that that doesn't have to come out of our budget that is extremely helpful. We even have a group of kids going to come in and help, middle school kids, but they're going to do a mailing for us. They're going to stuff envelopes and do a mailing and put labels on and stuff like that. So, obviously dollars is number one, but donating items that we need and, just spending their time helping us do stuff, our small staff that runs in 100 different directions that can't always get done. So,
Good. All right, so do you have anything you would like to add that we haven't brushed upon?
I think I've touched I think I've touched most of it.
Good. Good.
So,
right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the work that you do in our community, and thank you for your passion to help others.
Thank you.